go ahead. It looks like people are here, and I'll continue to promote people if they join.
Cynthia, you went away, dear, and you're obviously, you were upside down at one point.
Hey. Maybe I'm gonna leave early the meeting because I have another meeting later.
I think we're gonna get this one going here in just a second.
Yes, that's fine. I have another meeting. I don't know.
Yeah.
Too many
Cynthia's had-
meetings.
Yeah, Cynthia's had trouble with her internet, so she's trying to get herself going.
Okay, that'll be fine. Anyway, how are you?
Cynthia, can you see us and hear us?
Yeah.
Are we ready to go? Yep.
Yeah, I'm ready.
We're ready.
So is everybody in?
Yep, I think so.
Okay, well then it's official. Welcome to the October Places 29 Hydraulic Advisory Committee. Yay! My picture's a little odd on here because my my computer's not behaving, but that's all right. You don't need to see me. I think that we're, getting ready to begin recording, just to remind everyone. So we're going to call the meeting officially to order and get going. And as you all remember, we get to make our little speech about this meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with emergency order number 20-A16, an emergency ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. The committee members who are electronically present at this meeting are, and especially since I can't see my computer, I'm going to call off the name. And if somebody would just say I or here or wave their hand so that Rosemary, Diantha, or somebody can see it. So John Neal, Samantha Strong, Bill Love.
Here.
Vito Chetta, Jane Fogelman, Michelle Busby, Yolanda Speed,
Here.
Kimberly Swanson,
Here.
John Lewis,
Here.
yay, Christopher Rembold, Cynthia Neff, yes, Michael Corrigan, James Clemenco, as we know at home, Rosemary Miller, and Julian Bivens and Diantha are both here.
Yep.
Okay. So the opportunities for the public to access and participate in the electronic meeting are posted on the Albemarle County calendar. Please note the chat is disabled. And if you want to say something in the chat, this is sent to the meeting administrator. Okay. We tend to use the raise hand feature. That seems to make more sense and work for people. We also have plenty of people from the staff here to help us. Andy Riddleback, Jim Barber, Michaela Accardi, and Carolyn Schaefer. So can we get a motion to approve the agenda before we take our next step? Someone, anyone?
I move we approve the agenda.
You're the best, Bill. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we've got an agenda. And now we have to adopt the meeting minutes from the last meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to read them? Does anybody have any questions? Boy, this is gonna go quick. If somebody would, again, we need to approve the minutes by voice vote. So if somebody would make a motion to approve the minutes, I would be forever in your debt.
So moved.
Jane. Second,
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any,
Aye.
yay, any opposed? Thank you, thank you. Okay. We did that in a couple minutes and now we are ready for the Heritage on Rio Community Meeting, right? Who should I be? Is Andy taking the lead on this or?
Yes, I can take it from here.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So my name is Andy Bartelbach, and I am a senior planner with the Albemarle County Planning Division, and I am the lead project coordinator for an application that has recently been submitted to the county for review. So I will give a brief overview of the review process of this application, and then turn it over to the project applicant for them to give a presentation with more details on the meeting, and then there will be a question and answer period afterward. I'll be available to answer any questions on the county process and timeline, and then the applicant will also be available to answer any questions on their proposal. So the application is called the Heritage on Rio, and the application number is ZMA 2021-11. And so first I want to go over the review process and why we're here this evening, what the purpose of a community meeting is. And it's to share information about the proposed project and review process and any relevant policies or regulations, including the county's zoning ordinance and the county's comprehensive plan, to solicit public input on the project and then provide this information at a later date to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. And then in addition to this meeting, there will be 2 additional meetings, one each with the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. Those are public hearings and public comment is welcomed at those meetings. And neither of those meetings has been scheduled yet at this time. So we're at the Places29 Hydraulic CAC, and community meetings are often held in conjunction with these meetings. And on the right is a map showing the boundaries of the Hydraulic CAC. And then this project is located within the Rio Magisterial District. So how does development happen in Albemarle County? This is just a brief timeline showing how it happens. And for this project, we're in the far left, the legislative review portion of the timeline, which is kind of the yellowish green color. And so what is legislative review? If the property owner seeks to change the zoning district of their property, as with this application, Board of Supervisors approval is required. And so leading up to the Board of Supervisors meeting, the application is first reviewed by county staff and other agencies such as VDOT, the Service Authority, the Rivanna Water and Sewer Authority. And then it goes to the Planning Commission, and they hold a public hearing and make a recommendation on the application to the Board of Supervisors. And then the Board of Supervisors will hold a meeting, a public hearing, and they will make the final decision to either approve or deny the request. So first, what are zoning and comprehensive plan? Zoning first, most cities and counties have laws about what you can build and where, and that depends on what the zone of the property is. And the county uses zoning to group land into different areas to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the county. There are 2 main ways that the zoning ordinance groups development together, either use of buildings such as residential, commercial, institutional, industrial, or the size and shape of buildings, including building height, the square footage of the building, or how far the building is set back from the street and neighboring property lines. The zoning ordinance dictates what can be done by right today. And if the proposed use of a property is not permitted currently by the zoning ordinance, then they will go through a rezoning process like with this application to be able to change the zoning ordinance to allow the use that is proposed. And so for that, we also look at the comprehensive plan. The Albemarle County Comprehensive Plan establishes a 20-year vision for the county, and it's a document that contains overarching policies and recommendations that also incorporate each of the master plans that have been adopted by the Board of Supervisors. And all of these policies, plans, and recommendations have been developed in extensive engagement with community members over the years. So each development area has a master plan and contains the future land use recommendations for every property. And the master plan for this area, for the area of the county that Heritage of Rio is proposed to be in, is the Places29 master plan. Sometimes the current zoning and the future land use designation do not always line up. And so that is one reason why a property owner may choose to request a rezoning of their property. So more specifically, a rezoning is a request to change the property zoning. The application is reviewed for consistency with the area's future land use designation. It's found in the comprehensive plan, and in this case specifically, the Places29 plan. It's reviewed for consistency with all state and local standards and regulations. And if a property is in an entrance corridor, and this property is, it is also reviewed by the Architectural Review Board in their guidelines. So just a brief overview on this project this evening, the Heritage on Rio. This is a map showing the property. It consists of 5 parcels of land on Rio Road West, right near the Charlottesville Health and Rehabilitation Center. And the applicant is requesting that the property be rezoned from R6 residential to PRD, planned residential development. And I'll get more into what that is on the next slide. The property, as I mentioned earlier, is located in the Rio Magisterial District. Total, the 5 parcels are approximately 8.23 acres, and the applicant is requesting that a maximum of 250 multifamily residential units be permitted on this property. So the existing zoning is R6 residential, which allows up to 6 dwelling units per acre. And the applicant is requesting to have it rezoned to planned residential development, which allows residential up to a maximum of 35 units per acre, along with limited commercial uses. And then this property is also located within an entrance corridor, which is Rio Road West. It's located within the overlay district of the airport impact area. And then there are managed steep slopes on the property, which means there are slopes greater than 25% on the property. So then looking at the future land use is designated in the Places29 master plan. There are actually 2 land use designations on these 5 parcels: urban density residential and neighborhood service center. So in the map on the right, the orange is the urban density residential, and the pink and white striped portion, which is in the very northeast corner of this property, is the neighborhood service center. And urban density residential recommends residential uses at a density between 6 and 34 units per acre, with limited supporting uses such as religious institutions, schools, and small scale commercial office and service uses. And then the neighborhood service center recommends commercial, retail, and employment uses with supporting residential between 3 and 20 units per acre. So that's all I have for this evening. This is just a timeline of the process. As I mentioned, we're currently the staff review of the proposal is currently ongoing. And this evening is the community meeting. And then, as I mentioned, we will also eventually have public hearings with both the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. However, those meetings have not been scheduled at this time. And then my email address is at the bottom of this screen. And so if you'd like to be kept up to date on this project, please just email me at that email address, and I will add your name and contact information to a contact list that I've begun for this project. And as the project moves along and as the public hearings with the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors are scheduled, I would be happy to send email updates letting you know when those meetings are and how you can take part in those meetings when they are scheduled. So now I will turn it over to the representatives for the applicant, and they will provide more details on what their proposal are. And so that is Valerie Long and Megan Nadostep of Williams Mullen. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Good evening, everyone. My name is Valerie Long. I'm with Williams Mullen. As Andy mentioned, we are the applicant's representatives. I want to take just a few minutes to thank you for accommodating us on your agenda tonight. We really appreciate the opportunity to share information with all of you about the project. If I could also introduce the applicants, it's Rob and Will Gordon. They are a brother team. Their company is called GW Real Estate Partners. They are the contract purchasers of the property. Rob and Will are Albemarle County residents and natives and have been around a while and own a variety of apartment buildings and communities in the county. But this is the first time they have gone through the process of a rezoning application in the county. So it's been great to introduce them to this process. And Megan Nadostep has joined us as well. She is a very new member of our firm team here. She is a senior land use planner who's been providing obviously valuable assistance to us on the application materials. Scott Collins with Collins Engineering is the civil engineer for the project. So he is on the meeting as well. And I'm sure there'll be some questions that I'll defer to him on. And I think that's everyone from our project team. I hope I haven't forgotten anyone. And thank you, Andy, for providing such a thorough overview of the process. We do have a few slides that we can share. Some of it is information that Andy's already covered. So I'll probably skip ahead to a few slides. Hopefully I will. Bear with me one second while I get this in slide meeting. Sorry, bear with me. Okay. Hopefully you're seeing the right one. You seeing my title screen? Okay. I'm not hearing anyone else, but I can only see some of you on my screen at once.
Yes, we can see it.
We're seeing it, Valerie. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I want to just make my other image bigger so I can see if anyone waves at me. Okay. I think you all know where the project site is now based on the overview, but just for orientation, again, the main entrance is the existing driveway that is located off of Rio Road that serves the Charlottesville Health and Rehab Center. A lot of you who've been around longer than me probably still think of this facility as Heritage Hall because it was that way for so long. Is an aerial view showing the parcels and the location. We obviously have the Four Seasons neighborhood over here. This is the Oakley project that is mostly under development. The Blake Assisted Living Facility is located here. The new Veterans Memorial Park is here. An small apartment building will be here. And the Garden Spot Nursery is located here. And then of interest is the Rio Road forms the boundary of the designated development area in this location. So parcels on the opposite side of Rio Road are not located in the development area. This is just the comprehensive plan map. I think Andy showed this as well in a different version, but again, shows the parcels across the street in white are because they're not in the development area. It does pick up a little bit here with some institutional designations, planned residential here. This is designated for urban residential density. I'm sorry, excuse me, this is the zoning map. This is the existing R6 zoning. And you can see the areas here are managed steep slopes. Those are man-made. This is on the rehab facility parcel. There's a small area of managed steep slopes here that were created when the driveway was formed, and then a few others along Rio. A few other smaller areas of managed slopes here. And as Mr. Rottelbeck indicated, the property is adjacent to an entrance corridor. So the Architectural Review Board will have jurisdiction over the site plan. And I think I mentioned that this is the Oakley property. That's now zoned neighborhood model development, and the garden spot is a commercial zoning. And this is the comprehensive plan. As indicated, same colors. The orange in this case with regard to the comprehensive plan is designation for urban density residential, which contemplates a density level of between 6 and 34 dwelling units per acre. It's the same designation that's applied to the existing neighborhood to the west, and very similar to that entire area. And as Andy mentioned, there is a neighborhood services designation here per the Places29 master plan. And then the recently approved Rio area, intersection, what, as many of you probably know, because I'm sure you covered it extensively as part of your CAC meetings, the Rio 29 small area plan was recently approved. This is not within the boundaries of that small area plan, but it is very close. You can see from the parcels in the sort of pale yellow and then the pink, those are within the small area plan. So it's on the border, or it's on the edge, not in it, but very close to that area. So we think that this project will really support and further the goals of the small area plan. This is a copy of the application plan. I'm going to skip to the next slide where it's zoomed in a little bit further so people can see it a little bit better, but I'm happy to go back at any time. So this would be the binding plan that shows the main entrance would be one of the existing entrance would serve as one of two entrances to the project from Rio here. And then this is a new entrance that would be created. All of the rectangular areas in pale yellowish are building envelopes where buildings would be located. We're proposing a total of 7 buildings and a maximum of 250 residential units. So the one change I want to point out to you, and you'll see this on our illustrative plan, is since we submitted the application last month, we are proposing to rotate this building 90 degrees. So the long side of this building will now essentially mirror this location. So I'll show that to you, but didn't want you all to be surprised by that. We also have recreational amenity areas and open space designated, as well as some landscape buffers around the perimeter of the property, both along the sides and then in the front. And then we have, right now, as the folks who live nearby probably know, there is a sidewalk, but it's a fairly narrow standard width sidewalk. And there is not a grass planting strip or anything. The sidewalk is right on the edge of the curb. We're proposing as part of the project to replace that existing sidewalk with a 10-foot wide asphalt multi-use path that would obviously better accommodate pedestrians and those with bicycles or strollers, that sort of thing. And it would also include a grass median strip between the road, the curb, and the new path that will make things more comfortable and provide a little bit of a separation zone for pedestrians and bicyclists walking in that area adjacent to Rio. Let's see, there is an existing bus stop. It's roughly right about here. It's not in as good of a location. We're proposing to relocate it slightly to the west, to the area where there's a star. We will obviously be working closely with representatives of Charlottesville Area Transit to make sure that that location works for them and that they support it. We think that's a better location and will provide opportunities to, enhance that bus stop with a shelter and a bench. Right now, it's just a pole. And there's no really amenities or comfortable. It's not the most comfortable bus stop. So we think it could be improved with a bench and a shelter to improve that. And obviously would be a wonderful amenity both for the residents of the Heritage on Rio, as well as nearby residents or those who might work at the Blake Assisted Living Facility, at the Rehabilitation Center, or any of the other businesses nearby. We have some views of the project site from Rio. This is, if you're driving west, you can see in the distance the entrance to the property. That's again, the existing driveway. Oops. And this is a little bit closer up view. Just for reference, this existing sign for the rehabilitation center, that will stay in place. And this shows the bus stop here. You can see how close it is to the sign. So we're proposing to move it down roughly in this location. This is, it involves several parcels, one of which is the vacant parcel in front of the rehabilitation center, and then a handful of small homes that have been proposed to be sold for the project. And this includes the last lot. This lot here, you can't really see the house, it's obscured by the vegetation, the trees. That parcel is not part of the project. So you can see how along this frontage, you can see the existing sidewalk, how that would be replaced with the path, and how that area would be incorporated into the project. This is an illustrative plan. We have not yet submitted this. We will be submitting it with our next round after we receive Mr. Reidelbach's comments. We know we're going to need to update our plans to respond to those comments, but we wanted to provide the community committee with an illustrative plan to provide a little bit of better information about what this project might look like, knowing that the application plan can sometimes be a little bit obtuse. So this is just a very rough conceptual illustrative plan showing how the buildings would relate to each other. This is the building that I mentioned earlier that's been rotated. So again, you have 7 buildings. The ones along Rio would all be 3 stories tall. The 3 buildings in the back, these 2 at least will definitely be 4 stories. This one may be either 3 or 4. I think they're still trying to work out some of the logistics with that one. This is the central amenity area. They will have a clubhouse and a pool and a fitness center, some of the typical amenities that you see with an apartment community like this. There's also an area back here that will be reserved for recreational amenities, maybe a dog park. There'll probably be a tot lot somewhere on site. All of those issues, those details haven't been fully fleshed out yet. We'll certainly have to do that by the site plan stage, but we wanted to at least show that we can accommodate those areas. This is a better close-up with some labels on some of those amenity areas that I just mentioned. So again, amenity area here and here. This just for reference is the existing driveway for the rehab center. New bike path here. It's a little hard to see because the red property line obscures it a little bit, but this is the location of the new path all along. Some buffer areas along the front and the sides, and then the location of the proposed location for the new bus stop. This is just a close-up showing a little bit better the new asphalt path along the front, since it was a little hard to see. Similarly with the landscape buffer on the adjacent to the private property. And then some details about the future amenities that are proposed. These are just some very illustrative, representative renderings or examples. The project buildings have not yet been designed. And as I mentioned earlier, the Architectural Review Board will have jurisdiction over the ultimate design of those buildings as well as the site plan itself. So we don't want to in any way lead anyone to believe these are exactly what the buildings will look like by any means. These are examples of other projects that sort of provide some precedent images or examples of the general style and height of these buildings. But it's very conceptual, and I just want to reiterate, the buildings haven't been designed yet, but we just wanted, I thought it would be helpful for people to see, you know, okay, so a 3-story apartment building, for example, the ones adjacent to Rio, this is somewhat representative about what you might see. These are obviously 4-story buildings here and here. So by comparison, the height up here, you have 3-story buildings. So be something along the lines of this. These are fairly similar to other apartment projects that the Architectural Review Board has reviewed and approved over the last few years. But some of these projects are in other communities, I don't think any of these are in Albemarle. But we just thought it might be helpful for the members of the community to see some potential precedent images. This is also a page of our application plan. As you all may know, as part of the application process, the plan set has to include conceptual stormwater management design and a conceptual utility layout. It's essentially so that the engineers can demonstrate that if the project is approved for rezoning, that at the site plan stage, it's possible for the project to comply with the stormwater management regulations, and that it's possible to route the utilities through the project in a way that will comply with site plan regulations. This also shows some conceptual grading. So there's a lot going on here, but we wanted you all mostly to see that we've thought this out. I know there were some questions that were sent to Mr. Reidelbach that he shared with us, some questions from a few residents of the Four Seasons community about stormwater management. And I'm happy to defer to Scott Collins on that issue in particular, but in general, the stormwater management is proposed to be handled with an underground facility. So all of the stormwater will be contained on site pursuant to the existing regulations. It will not be allowed to sheet flow off of the site. Actually, that's what's happening right now probably, is because there's no development there. Ironically, there's no then stormwater management control and water just sheet flows. If the project is approved, once it's built, pursuant to an engineered stormwater management plan and drainage plan, we think that conditions will actually be improved because it will be an engineered design system. But if anyone has any specific questions about stormwater management beyond what I just described, I know Scott can handle that much better than I can. With regard to the density, there's a lot of information here, but we just wanted to show this is an exhibit to our application plan that we comply with the specific details of the density regulations for the portion of the project. It's right about an acre that is located within the area designated for neighborhood service center. It has a lower density recommendation of up to 20 dwelling units per acre, whereas the rest of the project in orange has a density recommendation of up to 34 dwelling units per acre. So we just wanted to show our math to show that in this particular area, the density is within the 20 dwelling units per acre, and that within this area, it's within the 34. And overall, it's 31.2, I believe, total. So it's within the recommendations. One last thing I did not yet touch on, let me back up if I may, is the affordable housing component of the project. As required by or recommended by the county's affordable housing plan that's in effect, the project is proposing that 15% of the units, of the rezoned units, will be affordable to those making up to 80% of the area median income. So since the property already has the zoning of R6, that allows by right 6 dwelling units per acre. And at this acreage, it's just about 50 acres that could be built by right. And so as part of the affordable housing for all of the units above that 50 by right lot yield, so 200 units, 15% of the 200 units would be affordable to per the county standards, and that comes to just about 30 units, if my math is correct. So that is a proffered note on the application plan. And with that, I'm going to ask Megan or Rob or Will Gordon or Scott Collins if I've forgotten anything. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so everybody can see each other a little bit better. But we can obviously go back to any of those slides at any point if anyone wants us to. Did I forget anything? Megan? No? Okay. Then we are happy to go to questions and answers from members of the committee.
Is it going to require a traffic light?
Oh, thank you. Very good question. It will not. We have conducted or had a traffic study prepared, and I'm glad you asked the question because I did forget to mention the traffic There's a study that was submitted with our application. It does not require a signal at either location. It actually doesn't even require a turn lane or a taper lane at either location. So we're pleased to see that that's not required. So, yeah.
How do you envision the bicycle lane feeding into the existing sidewalk?
Well, obviously the lane is there now, and so we wouldn't impact that existing bike lane, but the addition of the new 10-foot wide multi-use path, at least as I see it, it provides an alternative for those who may not want to ride their bicycles in the bike lane that's in this roadbed. But it will, I guess, integrate with the existing bike lane, just like the existing sidewalk does. Does that address your question?
Well, it was more, is the path itself going to lead back into the sidewalk on either side? So if you've got this asphalt path, is it just gonna on either side just feed back into a cement sidewalk? Or is it gonna be now out into the road area where the bicycle lane is now?
No, there'll be a grass strip, so the curb, and that will be between the existing bike lane that's in the roadbed. Between there and the new asphalt path, there'll be a grass strip, so separating the new path from the existing bike lane that's in the road. It won't impact the existing bike lane in any way.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Sure.
Bill Love?
Sorry, how, on the affordable housing units, will they be spread out across the 7 buildings? I mean, how do you envision that, or will they be concentrated? And the second question is, if my math is correct, 30 units out of 250, I know 50 is by right, but that's 12%. I just wonder if the economics are such that you could bump up the percentage of the overall number to somewhere around 15 or 20%.
Well, let me take the first question. And I'll defer to Rob and Will Gordon if they've thought this through yet, but I think it's a little premature. They have not yet thought about where the affordable units will be within the project. I suspect that they will be more spread out, but I don't think that has been determined yet. With regard to the number of units, it's again, the first of the 250, the first 50 are the by right lots. And so 15% of the 200 additional or 200 new units that were being requested is 30 units. And so that's what's proposed now. Certainly they could end up doing more if they chose to, but that's what is consistent with the county's policy right now.
Does that answer your question, Bill?
Yes,
Will
thank
it
you.
Chris go?
Yes, I have a question. I know you had a traffic survey done, but there's going to be, this is 250 units, which is going to be 500 cars, which if they go in and out of the place twice a day is 1,000 cars going in and out of these entrances. And this is on a curve in the road. And I just wonder how many people making left turns out of this, the chance of accidents. And I think that needs to be thought of very carefully by the traffic people.
You're right. And I should clarify that we have submitted the traffic study to the county and to VDOT to review, but we have not yet received any of their comments back. So it's possible that they may have other recommendations.
One thing that's possible is if the second entrance were moved south to the far end of the property, it would be on a straighter section of the road and give a little bit more sight distance. The second thing is that the I mentioned this is, you talk about water management coming off this thing. Currently, everything in this area is not paved, so it's permeable. So the amount of water going out of this is a lot less. Once you pave all this, there's going to be a lot of water coming out of it. In a lot of jurisdictions, they have the ability to make what's called permeable paving, especially for the parking units. And that way the water, a lot more water stays on the facility instead of getting dumped off into the sewer, or the storm sewer system. And you know, there's a lot of, I mean, I just think that should be a consideration for this.
Well, and I will ask Scott Collins of Collins Engineering to weigh in, but I know that permeable pavers are sometimes used in projects. Particularly, it's a method of meeting the requirements of the stormwater management regulations at the state and local level. I don't believe that's been determined yet, but certainly I think it's fair to say it's always something that's in the toolbox as a method to comply with the regulations.
Even if you did permeable parking, still you're going to have about 60% of the area there as being the roofs of the buildings and the actual roads. So there's still going to have to do stormwater management. It would help a lot.
Oh, sure, no question. And Scott, if you have anything additional to add in that regard, I would welcome it.
Absolutely. No, Valerie, you summed it up perfectly. We look at all aspects when we start stormwater management projects. So we don't take anything off the table right away. We analyze everything and look at all possible means and methods to have the site comply with the DEQ and county and state requirements. So absolutely, we look at permeable pavers as an option on every project until a lot of times it's feasible, and a lot of times sometimes it doesn't make sense based on slopes or drainage areas or what have you. So we look at everything.
If nobody else has a question, I was going to ask the same, kind of tied to the parking, but the entrance to Charlottesville Health and Rehab, I mean, how much traffic do they get? And I'm having a hard time picturing how their road, because I stopped by there the other day to look at it, that road will go right through this development. And how will that be? How tall will the buildings be close to the road so that, you know, it impacts Charlottesville Health and Rehab? And are we at all concerned about emergency vehicles that go in and out of there?
Thank you, Mrs. Neff. Excellent question. If you don't mind, I'll share my screen again and show you the illustrative plan. So again, to orient everyone, this is the existing driveway for the rehab center, and they have that parcel here, and you can sort of see that driveway continuing. That parcel has a deeded access easement through the site, so that driveway location has to remain in place. And so what our designers have done is just incorporate that driveway into the project's design. So we're not changing the width of it. The width itself is 50 feet. And so we need to maintain that. That does allow some room for sidewalks and plantings within the 50-foot area. But as shown here, and again, this is the illustrative plan based on the building envelopes, the buildings would be relatively close to that driveway to help frame the streetscape the way the county's design guidelines and comprehensive plan goals encourage, but it will certainly not impact their driveway at all. It has to remain in place pursuant to their legal rights for ingress and egress in that location. So it worked out really well to just incorporate it right into the design of the project. And frankly, that's, I think, how the original owners of the sites assumed it would take place. The easement reads, it sort of contemplates that this property would be developed in the future, and that as long as the driveway stays in place and that the access is not infringed, that that's what was contemplated. Does that help?
Yeah, it's just hard to quite imagine, you know, like when they're busy and you see people coming in and out of there, and then there's an ambulance, it's like, it's hard to picture, with buildings on either side, but I mean, I think, it works and, you've factored all that into it, so.
We try to. Thank you.
Anybody else?
We have,
Jane?
So how does this impact the schools and the population of the schools in the area?
Sure. Well, as you all probably know, students from at this community would attend Agner-Hurt Elementary and I believe Sutherland Middle and Albemarle High School. As I think most people know, Albemarle High School is at capacity right now. Agner-Hurt does have sufficient capacity ever since the expansion at Woodbrook was put in place. Based on our review of the most recent recommendations of the school division's long-range planning committee, as we understand it, the committee has recommended that the county fund essentially a new high school that they have been planning called Center 2 that would be located over near Monticello High School, somewhat of an alternative similar to the Center 1 facility that's located at the old Comdial building. And that part of that is to help, among other things, would relieve some of the capacity pressures that exist at Albemarle High School right now. There's certainly other recommendations that committee has put forward. Both, I guess it's addressed to the school division as well as the Board of Supervisors, among other things, building a new elementary school in the northern feeder pattern. So there will be some students at this school families that will, if the project is approved, there will no doubt be families that live here with school-age children. We are hopeful that by the time the project is approved, that progress will be made on addressing some of those issues. And certainly we think that it's very helpful to provide housing that is in good locations for families that can be close to those schools. For instance, school children could walk to Agner-Hurt Elementary School. It's not too long of a walk to Albemarle High School for those who may want to. So certainly there will be some school children, but we hope that with the county's long-range planning that there will not be an impact on that.
Diantha?
Yes. Hi, Valerie. Thank you. Just a comment because of the school question. There's ongoing work right now at the school board level around capacity issues in the schools, which is what Valerie was referencing. There's also an upcoming discussion with the Board of Supervisors and school board around capital improvement projects. And I'm sure school capacity will be one of those discussions, just saying. My question really was more, I'm curious, Valerie, or someone, the multi-use path, and you were talking about the grassy area that you all are using. Who will be responsible for maintaining that grassy area? Because we all know Albemarle County doesn't have the wherewithal at this point to do that type of work. VDOT does not do that type of work. And I'm just wondering, will there be a management company, or I wasn't sure if these rentals are for sale or if these units are for sale or if they're rental. And so I'm just trying to get at a couple of those.
Very good question. I should have clarified from the beginning. These would all be for rent apartment units. The grass strip that is located between the new proposed path and the curb, I believe, and again, I'll ask Scott Collins to correct me if this is not right or clarify as needed. That is land that's currently within the boundaries of the parcel, but that would be dedicated to the public, to VDOT, because it would be outside the boundaries. So I guess my understanding is that when it's grass, that VDOT does maintain it, but I know that if it's weeds growing out of a curb, they don't maintain it. That being said, Scott, go ahead. I see you've unmuted. Feel free to chime in.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Valerie. That area, the grass area, and any planting, street trees, what have you in that area would be maintained by the management center of the facility of the apartment complex. They handle all the maintenance. That is a requirement from VDOT. And when the site plan is approved, maintenance agreements go into place for the maintenance of that area.
That's music to my ears. Thank you.
John Neal, who's still smiling.
I am smiling because I know Anth and I have lots of conversations about weeds and curbs in Albemarle County. I just wanted to very quickly say one of the design elements that I really liked on the plan was the sidewalks from each of the buildings along hydraulic and leading to the street. Where a lot of times, back in the day, apartment buildings were built, sort of facing one another and everything happened inside. But this is nice because it looks like it's promoting walkability and engaging with the road, which I think is nice. And then the last thing that I would say is I would just like to say I think this is a fantastic location for this project. It's the urban ring, and we need as much housing as we can get. And this is an ideal space that's underutilized now. And I think that, it gets a full-throated support from me.
Yeah, me too, just as long as the garden spot stays there. I love that place. They're a little quirky, but I like them. Anybody else?
We have two attendees, Peter Krebs and Nancy Hunt, who have had their hands up.
Oh, sure. I can't see that, but go ahead.
So we can start with Peter Krebs. So Peter, you can go ahead whenever you'd like.
Thank you, Michaela, and thanks, Cynthia and everybody else. And thank you, Valerie and others for the presentation. I had a couple of questions. Would you prefer that I give them all at once and then you just answer? I'm guessing that's probably yes, or I could do them one at a time, whichever you prefer.
I'm fine either way. Maybe one at a time might actually be a little easier.
Okay, great. So I was going to ask about the rent or purchase question. You got to that a little bit, but can you speak a little bit actually about the management future of it? Is the idea that this would be managed by the developer, or what's sort of the long-term idea with managing this once it gets built?
Sure, and I'll of course ask Rob and or Will Gordon to clarify as needed, but their company would develop the property and would manage it. They have experience doing that with apartment communities here in the county. So unless they say otherwise, that is the plan. So, and it would be all rental.
Yes, and thank you for your question. The community would be all for rent product. And we have a partnership with a fairly large property management company out of Northern Virginia called Gates Hudson, and they manage somewhere around 20,000 units. And they would be in charge of managing this property. And it's right in their bailiwick. They manage some other properties that we're involved with, and or overall, we like the way they run the property. So, Will, do you want to add anything else?
No, I think that's good. I mean, I'm not sure whether what the question was one of concern or what, but just.
No, I simply wanted to know, and what you said is kind of what I assumed, but I try not to make assumptions like that if I can avoid it.
Yep, and this is also kind of in line with the question about the grass and the road. We just for everyone's, it's in our interest to try to keep this community as well run as possible, and whether we are doing that with our own internal property management function or with a third party group such as Gates Hudson, it's a top-notch operation. So, and,
awesome.
And by the way, I didn't get a
Thank
chance
you.
to introduce myself, and I don't think my brother did either, but just wanted to thank all of you for your time tonight, and that we, as Valerie mentioned, while we've owned property in the county, this is our first time going through this process specifically. So thank you all for your time, and we look forward to working with you.
So Peter,
Okay.
did you have other questions?
Yes. So next question, and I'll try to go quick with them, is part A, why has the bus stop been moved? Do you have a reason? And it's probably a good one, just curious. And part B to that is, how do we make sure that people who are using that bus stop can easily get to the assisted living facility, et cetera, from that bus stop?
Sure. I think the reason for moving it was to shift it further where it's not as close, further away from the curve, and where there was a little bit more room to incorporate additional transit amenities, like I mentioned, the shelter and the bench. In terms of assuring that folks or people can walk from the bus stop to the Blake, certainly they'll be able to use the proposed on-site multi-use path that exists. I believe, but I need to take another quick look at the street view images. I believe the sidewalk continues down along the frontage of the garden spot. And then there will also be sidewalks in front of Oakley where the Blake is located. Similarly, any employees or guests of, patients at the rehab center will also be able to take the bus to that location and then walk on the internal sidewalks up the existing driveway to the existing rehab facility.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just ask one more so as to respect the CAC's time. Appreciate the opportunity. I know other people are going to ask about this, but so it's good that there's affordable housing, and now we know it's also rental housing, so answers a piece of that. What about the duration of that affordability? Has that been figured out yet?
Yeah, right now it's proposed to be for 10 years. That's a no plan.
Thank you. Thanks, Cynthia, and everybody
thanks,
else.
Peter. Nancy, did you have a question still? There she is.
Yes, I did.
Go ahead.
And it's about stormwater. I will also divulge that I'm a member of Places29 Rio CAC, even though I don't actually live in it. I probably live in your hydraulic district. Branchlands is downhill from quite a lot of water flow, and this will be one more additional one. The amount of non-green space, building roofs and parking lots, is huge in this site, and the little rectangle that says it's stormwater storage is pretty small. So I would appreciate two things. One, I'd appreciate knowing where the water flows. Are you going to flow the water into the Four Seasons retention pond? I don't think so, but it would be helpful to know, because all that water does come down through the retention ponds, I believe, at Hillsdale and Greenbrier. And my second question is, there's not a whole lot of green space in this development, but there seem to be a fair number of trees and shrubs, all of which, at least for the first several years, are going to desperately need water. And it seems to me that, since I know how smart Valerie Long is, and also county employees, a way to capture that water to be able to use it, stormwater, when you need to be watering your trees and so forth. I think there are ways not to have a full intensive irrigation system, but given that it's a rental property, there may be possibilities for rain barrels or similar types of water that can then be used within the site rather than flowing downhill and dumping into wherever it ends up dumping into. Thanks.
Somebody have a?
Yeah, I'm going to ask
Scott. Move this along.
Yeah, Scott, can you help answer the specific questions about the stormwater management design and where it would flow to, and whether on-site capturing for irrigation purposes, is that something that is an option?
Absolutely, yes. So it's kind of a multifold answer, but so there's a stream that the flow from the property ties into now, and that's our outfall point. And so we'll still maintain that. The reason why the stormwater management facility is shown at the size as it is that we fully expect to incorporate other means and methods of stormwater management from the roof leaders, from the apartment buildings, and doing some treatment prior to them getting into the storm sewer system, which allows us to make the underground a little bit smaller as we're detaining and providing water quality in other areas of the site for as potential stormwater management practices. Same thing as pervious pavers and other aspects. We look at everything, and same thing with rain barrels. Absolutely, that's one of our things on the list that we look at right away and see how we can incorporate that with irrigation means and methods and everything. So all great questions, and all things that we definitely look at when we start the stormwater management process. We look at all options available and try to come up with what makes the most sense.
Thank you, Scott. So Kim Swanson.
This is one last question about maybe the affordability, on the affordability topic. This is in the opportunity zone for the northern part of Albemarle County, is it not?
I believe that it is.
Is any opportunity zone financing part of helping with this project, or how is that what's going to make it affordable for the 10 years? Or
I am not aware. That's a good question. I don't know that they've gotten to that point yet, but Rob or Will, feel free.
We haven't finalized our capitalization strategy in terms of how we plan to finance the development, but it would be funded by a mix of private and institutional capital sources.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we may, I don't see any hands waving in the air. So good work. We've run a little over, but I think we got a lot accomplished, a lot of questions answered. So with that, I will thank you guys for doing such a nice job and bringing lots of information for everybody to work through this.
Great. Thank you all very much. Again, we appreciate the committee and Michaela and her team accommodating this on your agenda, and we really appreciate the time and the good questions. And certainly if there's follow-up questions, my contact information is on the application materials, or Andy Brattleback can share it with you. He's been great. That so far the 2 questions that were submitted, he shared with us. So whatever's the easiest way for people to get questions or comments to us, we welcome that. So thank you.
Cool. Thanks. Okay, next I see Jim Barber has been patiently waiting to talk to a lot of you guys who missed the fun shoveling that Kim Swanson was leading some of the back end on the Saturday down at the Charlotte Humphreys Park, but it keeps growing and getting better. So Jim, take us through a little update.
Yeah, Cynthia, thank you so much. And thank you guys for having me. I'm Jim Barber, Superintendent of Parks for the Albemarle County Parks and Recreation Department. And I asked Michaela, I'm on a satellite internet, didn't know if I'd have the availability to share my screen. So I asked for her to kind of put together a slideshow of that recent project that we completed at Charlotte Humphreys Park. For those that remember, in 2020, Albemarle County Parks and Rec and the CAC put together a survey. And one of the recommendations from that survey, along with several other, was the enhancement of the Charlotte Humphreys Memorial. So with that, we back in January of this year, I was contacted by Professor Bob Troy from the St. Anne's Belfield School. Their 9th grade class normally does an annual mission trip out of state, but due to COVID, we're unable to make that trip. So they figured out a way to utilize their students and share resources throughout the county. And Charlotte Humphreys Park was actually identified as one of the parks that they would like to come and do some work for us. So for 4 days, I believe it was the 18th through the 21st of May, we thought, what a better way to get some of these projects done inside of Charlotte Humphreys, whether it's the invasive management or removal. They did some mulching, but the main project was the memorial enhancement. So, Michaela, I'm not sure if you can share your screen, and maybe I can ask you to
Yes, I
go
can.
through the slides.
I can do that. And I wanted to also say on the last presentation, I can share out Andy's email address to everyone. If you wanted to make sure.
So at the beginning of this is basically in May, a lot of pictures of before, the day they showed up, a lot of the original kiosk appearance, which I'm all about first impressions in our park. And the first impressions as you enter Charlotte Humphreys at the time were not inviting to our customers. So yeah, so May 18th through the 21st was a stab service week. We had those folks, 36 students for 4 days.
Wow.
That's a lot of resource in a 23-acre park. But we utilized every one of them, and were able to do lots and lots of things, whether it was invasive management or non-native plant removal. A lot of poison ivy and a lot of ivies were removed. A lot of mulching was done. The whole front entrance corridor, for those who haven't been there, a lot of growth was around the kiosk area and within the entrance. So you can go to the next slide. So this is what we had. This is a lot of Nandina and a lot of Liriope. It's how this memorial looked. Needed a new stain. You couldn't even get into it. There was a goat path leading either side for our visitors to come into it. So that was the first day, first picture of it. You can keep scrolling through, please. The next several photos here will just show the students as they progress, all hand labor, loppers and mattocks and shovels, and they're slowly getting through it. This was early May or mid-May, so they obviously followed their strict COVID protocols. They being in the school system. And at that time, we had to continue to wear masks, face coverings and stuff if we couldn't socially distance. So this is kind of a, before, halfway through, we can continue.
Wow.
There you go. So this is the entrance, kind of looking back towards Whitewood. I didn't get it before that, I apologize, but you couldn't even see the road hardly with all the undergrowth there. So they removed, dug up, and this is the hardwood mulch, double ground hardwood mulch that was put back in there. Still along the road front, right in the entrance of the, next to the memorial. So there's the Doug's trip, their annual trip. I took this picture because they were unable to take their mission trip. Apparently Doug was a past student who had passed. So in his honor, every year, they go out and do rehab mission trips but I like the way he modified his shirts. If you can't see, he kind of took a Sharpie and went from 2020 to 2021. So being smart there. So this is a lunch break. We can keep going through. This is where we got to the end. So before, after, this is probably several hours into the project. How fast these guys worked on it. So Diantha and Cynthia and Kim, you guys were there that day, and notice we had some growth coming back that we had to get in and remove some more roots. But we did have it down to bare dirt. Ms. McKeel, there's your pavers. When they had removed them out, we actually found several more pavers we didn't know were there at the time. So that's how overgrown it was. Okay, Michaela. Another little project up and down the road, I must have out of order. This is just down the hill from the entrance to the park. There is another access entrance off Albert Court there. And I worked with our friends from FES, and I kind of told them we had some resources for the week. And you can see a storm drain just up from that. And they'd ask if we had time to remove some of the vegetation along the curb there to help with storm water. So that was also done. Next slide, please. Another project throughout the day, earlier in the year during the survey, benches throughout the park were some of the recommendations. So park staff, we incorporated 5 benches throughout the 1.5 miles of trail systems. And before they weren't mulched. So we had a bunch of this ballast stone aggregate in possession. So we thought a better permanent mulching around those benches was that ballast stone. So they handle, it's all wheelbarrow work. And so here we are on day 2. They came back once the non-native species were removed. This is restaining of the current memorial. Obviously took care in protecting the memorial and the floor surfacing there. This guy, unfortunately, I hope he recruited some more friends, but he was the only man in there at the time. So, next slide. Kiosk, or the main entrance sign. One of the first crew that came in, the first gentleman comes up to me and said, "Sir, excuse me," he said, "but where's the entrance sign to this park? All of your other parks have entrance signs. I didn't even know this park existed." So, this is the kiosk. Our sign's kind of inside of the park as you enter. I was like, man, that's a great question. We can reach out to the CAC or park staff, and maybe in the future that can identify a better entrance sign to advertise the location of it. So anyway, they taped off the sign, stained the kiosk as well, just real freshened it up, which it needed. Next slide, please. And part of the recommendation from you guys, or the CAC, and some of the survey results, we wanted to utilize the backside of the kiosk. So a new board was put on. I know Ms. McKeel, she had mentioned want to advertise some things on the backside of the kiosk. So another opportunity for us to use, or you guys to use as needed. So it was also put on there that day. Next slide, please. All right, so we got to the point. So middle of May is not the time to plant plants of any species, but native plants include. So we decided that we would hold off until the fall of this year when it's ideal conditions to plant. So I reached out to Rep Glatley, who was our stormwater or water specialist too for facilities environmental services. He also was co-author of the Piedmont Native Species book. So I reached out to him with species recommendations back in May and came up with a plan in September that we would do this planting. So this took place on September 30th. So the next set of slides through here will be that project. So once again, this is where we had to redig some of the new growth that had come back since May. Got a lot of the Nandina and Liripe out of there. Moved the stepping stones. Staff, this is Albemarle County Parks and Rec staff. Rep is right there, and here's the hardest working crew of the day right here. So
we drank coffee and ate donuts and watched them work. Don't
well, really appreciate your support.
Kim worked hard. Cynthia and I stood around and drank coffee and watched.
Well, we can't thank you enough for that, but Kim, thank you so much. And there's some photos in here, Kim. So this was that day, and thank you for the. I know staff really appreciated the coffee and the bagels. So, so this is kind of the layout. This is Rep explaining to Diantha and Cynthia exactly what we were putting in the ground. Native plants are kind of new to me, and I learned a lot from Rep through this project. At the end, I'll show you the complete list of what was put in and will be continue to go. I think he had found a couple species once we realized how the sun was shining that day that he wanted to change out. But over 200 native plants went in that day before lunch. So from rejuvenation of the soil to planting to mulching to first round of water happened within several hours. So it's a few more pictures of the prep work. This is the start and laying out of the plants in the desired locations. This is when Rep realized thought there was going to be shade here, so we need to change our layout. And there's our stepping stones that we've identified as the best pattern. Thank you, Ms. McKeel.
Too funny.
A few more layout. This is all prior to once they're in, they go in the ground fairly quick. And this is there's Kim. Jim and there's Jeremy, a few more on the backside. Over 200 native plants were between there and the kiosk were planted that day. And another angle of it. But there you go. I thought that was a cool picture. Just really promotes the entrance to the park now. Couple around the front and the next slide around the kiosk.
Nice.
So I don't know if I showed the before picture in the St. Anne's week, but behind that kiosk before, as everybody's aware, it was just overgrown with ivy and poison ivy and just all kinds of bad things. That area was mulch as well. This is another angle, a little stonework. This is a cool project. I'm not sure if Amy ever shared this or not, but the Office of Equity Inclusion reached out to us several months ago and wanted to incorporate several little libraries throughout our parks. Charlotte Humphreys was identified as one of the areas we wanted to have one there. So it just worked out. This is a new little library along with one of the benches from the first installation of the 5 that we did several months ago. I thought it was unique and I wanted to share this picture because that day of the St. Anne Service Week, I had a neighbor that lives across the road came up to me. She was worried that with all that work, you know, what are we doing to the park? Are we putting in a playground? Are we doing athletic fields? I'm like, no, ma'am, we're just sprucing up the entrance. And she said, well, I sure do like the addition of the new little library and that bench. She said, every single day I come over, get a book, sit in that bench and I read it. She said, the only thing you need now are several more benches in this area. So, you know, I kind of put it on the back burner and one of our recent projects, and you'll see some in a few minutes, we ordered 3 more benches and incorporated throughout that area that was spruced up. So just kind of reaching out to a customer request and you know, just thought that was pretty neat. There's one of the new benches that wasn't there prior. You know, I kind of put it between her house and the little library so she can see that one too. But I think it's a total of 8 now throughout the park. And these are the native plant lists that were installed. I know Kim, you probably planted all of those, but I was fortunate enough to help Rep get the woodland phlox and the golden ragwort. So, but thanks to Rep Glatley, he's just a superb resource for the county, and he was a huge help on this whole project. And thanks to Kim and Diantha and Cynthia as well for being there that day. Just a super upgrade to the park. Couple of things we are looking at in the near future, and I'll talk with Kim several times about it. Recently, this past summer, we had over 30 dead or hazardous trees removed throughout the park. And these are all within a 1.5 mile paved trail, trees that if they fell would be a hazard onto it. And there's I think there's still a lot of dead wood that in-house this winter. Park staff will come in with our chipping equipment, and we're going to start removing some of that, help clean it up a little bit better. But that'll be happening, you know, fall, winter of 21 and 22. Just another little upgrade in the park. Yeah, fun project, and thanks to everybody that was involved with it.
Thank you, Jim. It really was. It looks so much better. I would encourage everybody to go over and look. And I just want to take this opportunity to remind everybody that this is really the county's only pocket park, and that it's really a special place. And it's intended to be a park for people to walk to. For the most part, it's a neighborhood park. People ask, well, when are we going to put in a parking lot? And those sorts of things. And we have no intention of putting in a parking lot because it is a pocket park for people that can access it in the nearby community. And the Humphreys family requested that it be a natural walking park, which addresses a little bit the playground, gym, and some of the other things that we've talked about we're not putting in. But the reality is that you can go right down the road to Greer Elementary School, which is not very far away, and find a wonderful playground. So it's just the intent of the park, I like to stress to people. But we all really appreciate Parks and Rec. You all have
Yeah,
done a
yeah.
wonderful job. It's really cool.
Well, thank you. And thanks for that survey. That we learned a lot from that. So,
Yeah, that was great.
and a few more things on it we'd like to do, but yeah.
Okay, we are running behind. Oh, did you have a question, Bill?
I was just gonna say, I wanted to thank Michaela for doing that for me.
Oh,
I really
sure,
appreciate
yeah.
that. So,
No problem.
Really dumb. This is a really dumb question, but I walked through the park today. Those two areas with the little white flags, are they supposed to be where the plants are? I didn't quite understand the little white flags.
yeah, they're marking currently just for marking that where they're so small. I think some of them just so they're not confused as a weed or when staff's in there maintaining the property.
Yeah.
Just for
so
identification now.
Yeah, the plants are dormant, so it helps with the watering, just identifying, where the plant is so that when they come back in and water, because we've got to keep those little plants watered nicely.
And we really owe Kim a big round of applause because of her hard work with this park. So yes.
True. True. Okay, so I think we are at the point where we need to talk about, we need new officers of the CAC. And I know that this is going to break your heart, but it's not me. I am not, I think I've been doing this for far too long, but we really need, new people. We need to continue to change. You don't want me to do this another year. And so anyway, that's all I want to say. I'm very happy to make some nominations or do something, but this is my last official duty is to turn it over to Michaela.
Thank you, Cynthia. It's been fabulous working with you. So I'll make this quick since we're behind on time. I just have a quick overview of some things that y'all are probably familiar with, but there are 3 officers for the CAC, the chair, vice chair, and secretary. And I'll facilitate the elections starting with chair and then moving to the bottom of the list. Just as an overview, the chair presides over the meetings, works with county staff and Supervisor McKeel to set up the agenda. The vice chair supports the chair and will facilitate meetings if the chair is not available, attend those planning meetings as they wish. And the secretary takes minutes and helps with that very important duty. For the elections, I will ask for nominations, and nominations don't require a second. You can just raise your hand and nominate someone. And then to close nominations, I'll ask for a motion and a second and a vote. And then elections are done by voice vote. So unmute yourself. And when I ask for those in favor, those against, those abstaining, just verbally indicate your vote.
And do we have a way to, if somebody wants to volunteer, and said, I would, they might not get nominated, but, just kind of, I'm interested. My fear is always nobody's going to want to sign up for any of them. So, it's that.
Well, you can nominate yourself certainly, or say I volunteer,
Okay.
and we'll include that. Does anyone else have any questions before we get started? Okay, so we'll start with chair. And are there any nominations for chair?
Well, if I may be so bold, since I can't seem to shut up, I would like to nominate Yolanda Speed. I have been kind of trying to bring her into the circle, for a while, and she has participated in several meetings. I found her to be very thoughtful. She participates, she shows up, and she's kind and smart, and she's well connected. So that would be mine.
Thanks, Cynthia. Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Kim Swanson. I think she's, based on, it was just said, she's shaking her head no. I think she's terrific. So take that for what it's worth, Kim.
All right, anyone else? Okay, so I would need a motion for closing nominations.
I move that we close nominations.
And is there a second? Thought I heard something.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Rosemary. All right, and then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Yeah, I thought, don't we have to pick somebody?
Yes, so now that was just closing nominations. Now we will start with Yolanda Speed. All those in favor, just verbally unmute yourself and make your vote.
Aye.
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 Hi.
Any opposed?
Do we need to check with Yolanda that she wants to and is signing up for that responsibility?
Sure, we can go ahead, Yolanda.
The question is, will I accept the responsibility? The answer is yes.
Speech.
All right, so we'll just go through this for just procedure reasons. For Kim Swanson, any votes in favor?
Well, we can't. We all voted for.
I know, I think so. I just wanted to.
I followed Kim's lead.
Follow Kim's lead too, right?
Okay, well then we're settled. Congratulations, Yolanda. Our next poll is for the vice chair. So we'll start with the nominations. Are there any nominations for vice chair? And you can volunteer yourself as well.
Can I nominate Bill Love?
I think I want to beg off on, I think somebody younger would be appropriate for this. One reason I got off the electoral board was because I figured I would be 80 years old by the time my term was up. So I think a younger person would be more appropriate. Thank you, though.
I just will tell you, Yolanda was the vice chair, our current vice chair now ended. So, maybe Kim wants to be vice chair so that would lead her again to being chair. Nope, she's not going for it, but maybe.
I'd like to nominate Kim as well.
All right, any other nominations? Kim, are you okay moving forward with the
Sure.
nomination?
Yay!
I think as our only, can we close nominations? Can someone make a motion for that?
I'll make that motion, that we close nominations.
All right, in a second, please.
I'll second it.
I'll
Thank you,
second.
Sean. Thank you.
Aye.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Aye.
All right, we have one more secretary. We open nominations. Any nominations for secretary, please?
Well, Rosemary Miller has saved us. I think I've been doing this a while. Can you imagine if we lost Rosemary? So I nominate Rosemary, who's been fabulous and who I was raving about you to your dad.
Rosemary, are you okay to continue as secretary?
Yes.
Okay. Any other nominations? I'm not hearing any, so let's close nominations. Is there a motion?
Move the nominations.
I moved
be
to
closed.
Thank you. And a second, please.
Second.
All right, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Thank you all for working through Robert's rules with me. We have new chair Yolanda Speed, vice chair Kim Swanson, and secretary Rosemary Miller. I will email.
Women rock.
Congratulations, team. Yay.
Kim and Yolanda, I will reach out to you all for working out next month's agenda and figuring a plan for us to meet. I have the closing speech that I can read for you, Yolanda, or if you'd like to read it, if you have the random show, that's fine as well.
If we're ready to close, I can close it.
Cool.
I think so. Go ahead.
Okay. Our next, tentatively meeting for the CAC next is Monday, November 15th, 2021 from 5:30 to 7. Opportunities for the public to access and participate in the electronic meeting will be posted at a later date in accordance with emergency ordinance number 20-A16 and open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. The meeting is now adjourned.
Great meeting, guys. Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Enjoy
Thank
Halloween.
you so much.
Have a great
Take care,
safe
everyone.
Halloween.
Bye-bye.